they've been able to take control of a substantial part of the country. And the reason for that, I think, is it was partly that they're unified, but mostly Iran. That is, where do they get the money? Where do they get the weapons? First of all, to be powerful in Yemen, and secondly, to hit ships that are passing by. The answer is Iran. I mean, they don't manufacture their own, missiles. They get them from Iran. So when we think about the power of the Houthis, what's behind them is Iran.
And can you talk about for us just how powerful they are that they're backed by Iranian forces?
Well, the Iranians have given them a very substantial capacity, and you can measure it two ways. One, internally. They've taken control of a lot of Yemen, and for several years, both the Saudis and the United Arab Emirates engaged in a kind of war against them on behalf of the official government of Yemen. And they could not win. That is, they couldn't crush the Houthis and put them down, and there they still are. And then secondly, I mean, how powerful are they? Obviously, they've got the ability to reach out from the shore to hit ship after ship after ship, which shows, some level of sophistication in weaponry. And they have, led a very substantial part of the international shipping community to say, okay, we're out. We're not going to, these are the routes. This is the Bab el-Mandab Strait between Yemen and Africa. And then it's the Red Sea, and then it's the Suez Canal. And you've got a very substantial portion of international shipping going from Asia through the canal to Europe and the US, now saying, too dangerous, we'll go someplace else. Now, the US and the UK have organized a kind of protective mission to try to protect those ships. And when the Houthis would not stop, then the US and the UK finally did strike them more than once. But obviously, I'd say, and not enough, because they're still doing it.
I do want to talk about those multiple strikes in a second, but before we get to that, what have the Houthis said is their motivator for doing this? Because they're really disrupting, as you noted, global commerce in the Red Sea.
Well, they're claiming that it's because of the war in Gaza. But obviously, striking ships that belong to a bunch of countries wouldn't seem to have a very direct impact on the war in Gaza. I should say, by the way, I saw an article today noting that, well, they've hit American ships, they've hit ships that connected to Israel. They've never hit a Chinese ship, which is interesting. But their claim today is, this is all about the war in Gaza.
And you did note they're Iranian-backed, but White House National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby said over the weekend, quote, "We're not looking for conflict with Iran, and the U.S. isn't looking to escalate this." What do you make of those conflicts, or those comments, rather? Because although he's saying we're not looking for any conflict with Iran, they're Iranian-backed.
Yes. I think the administration's attitude is, in one way, understandable. We don't want a Middle Eastern war. But in another way, it's exactly the wrong message. The Iranians are not only backing the Houthis in striking ships, they're backing Shia militia groups in Iraq. They're backing Hezbollah in Lebanon and in Syria. And they're paying no price, zero price. And when Kirby says, we don't want a wider war, we're not trying to do anything, this has got nothing to do with Iran. Well, the message to Iran is, you can keep doing it and there will be no price to pay. There is never a price to pay. The United States has hit proxies of Iran in Syria and in Iraq, recently in Iraq. But we never make Iran pay a price. And so you can say, well, that's smart because we're not going to widen the war. But in my view, it is Iran that is now widening the war. And again, always through proxies, so they never pay a price.